Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 67 of the How to Live Slow podcast. It is the 1st of September when I'm recording this, which is spring. So happy spring, everyone. I'm also doing this a little bit differently, and I am broadcasting this live on Facebook, this recording live on Facebook. So if you want to see that, you can head over to my Facebook page. It's just How to Live Slow, and you can come and watch the replay of that. And so thank you everyone who's joining me on Facebook. So today, being the 1st of spring, I wanted to really reflect back. If you followed along on the podcast for a little while, you'll know that way back in May, I just felt this feeling that I had been doing the podcast every week for well over a year, and it was just time for me to take a little step back and reflect for winter and really figure out, do the hibernation mode and really commit to living a little bit more cyclically. And in winter, winter is the time of rest. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of dormancy. So I really wanted to honor that. And so I decided to step back a little bit from the podcast and go fortnightly, which was beautiful. It really helped me to figure out a few things that I wanted to do differently in my business. But also was able to, take some time away and go on holidays and feel that I didn't have that pressure of so much work on. So I'll talk about a little bit about the things that I did, but I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you about why. So cyclical living is kind of like seasonal living, where you embrace the different seasons, but we've also got, as women, we've got cyclical wisdom in our bodies. So our hormonal cycles kind of match the seasons, the cycles of the seasons, winter, spring, summer, autumn, and the phases of the moon. So winter would be your menstruation cycle, part of your cycle. It's also known in the moon cycle. It's like the new moon, but it's, like I said, it's a time of rest and reflection. Then in spring, you've got your follicular phase of your hormonal. So spring matches the follicular phase of your hormonal cycle, which is also the waxing moon, which is like emerging renewed, which is where we're heading into now. So if you're feeling that the humidity is starting to rise, I'm feeling really inspired, I've got a little bit more energy, I'm waking up earlier, I feel a bit more energized, I'm ready to do some new things, definitely where I'm headed. And I feel that energy of wanting to do more and feeling that energy flowing is really heightened for me this spring because of the resting that I did in winter. And then after spring, we have summer, obviously, which is your ovulation time, which is when you're feeling like the full moon. So if you don't have a hormonal cycle, you can kind of follow the cycles of the moon, or you can follow the cycles of the season and just really monitor and look at your energy and start to listen to, okay, I'm feeling tired, I need to rest. You can follow any kind of system, I guess, as long as you kind of listen to yourself. It's really all about learning to listen to yourself more. So the summer is about, getting social. This is the time when, if you were trying for a baby, this would be the time to do that. So you're feeling a little bit more connected. And you're also beginning to enjoy the fruits of your effort. In other words, in terms of the growing cycle, this would be when you'd be harvesting or beginning to harvest. Picking your summer fruits and things. So then autumn is your luteal phase, which is the waning moon. And this is the real strong energy of wanting to complete cycles. So preparing to rest. So this is when you get that. So in spring, you might be like, right, I'm going to start plans. I'm going to declutter. I'm going to get things organized. Go, go, go. In autumn, it's like, why didn't I get this done? I just got to finish this. I'm going to get it done. And you get that really strong, I need to just finish things so that I can have a seat and, start to rest a little bit more. So you get a little bit agitated if you aren't, moving through those cycles. So you can see, like I said, winter is actually the start of a new cycle. You would think that spring is the start of a new cycle, but actually the rest comes first. You have to let, the metaphorical fields be dormant for a little while so that they can start to emerge when, you plant your seeds and then they spring up literally in spring. And I think that's pretty telling. So, yeah. Okay, so you can apply this kind of style of living, which is cyclical living or seasonal living, slow living if you want to call it that. You can apply it to any part of your life. So you can manage your home life this way, your work life if you're able to, as much as possible. In terms of that, you can sort of set, you can see when you might benefit from not having meetings versus having meetings, depending on where you are in your cycle. Also the same thing with your social life, that sort of thing. So now let's talk about some of the things. I mean, you can probably think about all of this stuff in your life and you can see how this might begin to shift and change. It takes a little bit of time to get this really happening for you, but it is possible. But I think that the benefits really are particularly for women, because women have, men have a hormonal cycle of about 24 hours, whereas with us women, we're a little bit different. We don't wake up with the same amount of energy every day. And when you can start to honor that, then that's real self-care to me. So anyway, let's talk about some of the fun things that I did this winter. So I scaled back my podcast, as I said. I spent some time reflecting, decluttering. I really got into the gardening, weeding, mulching, all of that stuff. I did a lot of walking. I did the 30-kilometer coast trek along the beach, which was really nourishing, actually. I really loved that. And the training for that, I took that, the training for my walk wasn't hardcore. It was really nourishing. It really helped me to clear a lot of mental clutter and feel really strong and feel like I was finally doing something for me, like emerging from that that really intense babying, mothering thing, because my kids are 3 and 6 now, so they're a little bit more space and time for myself, which was really lovely. And I'm really thankful to have the support to have been able to do that too. So I also spent a lot of time just resting and reading. I read a lot of books. I used to be someone who each year I would say, all right, 52 weeks, 52 books, and I have never actually achieved it. And I just realized that that's just such an ableist kind of like productivity driven goal, where I decided to just start reading fiction for the fun of it. And I actually read a lot more than I would normally have read, because I didn't have this pressure of I've got to hurry up and get through this book and finish it so I can tick it off my to-do list. Reading became a much more restful, nourishing activity. So I didn't actually read much self-help at all. It was mainly all fiction or travel memoirs, which was really lovely. Because I had stepped back from weekly, there's a car. Because I had stepped back from weekly podcasts, it meant that I was able to step aside and start to think about what the future of How to Live Slow looks like, what I really want to call in for that, and how, how I make this into a business that actually pays for itself. Not only that, but also supports me and my family, rather than just, an expensive hobby in a lot of ways. Because I had so much extra time on my hands and I spent some time with my kids playing and adventuring and connecting. We took 2 full weeks off to go to Norfolk Island, which was beautiful. There wasn't much Wi-Fi there. There was a lot of nature, a lot to do and a lot not to do, as I think you've probably heard me explain about before. I gave myself permission to be creative and to say no and to ask for help and to let go of some things and to be really present even when that felt uncomfortable. And on that, I also honoured my need for much less socialising. I really felt, and I don't know if you relate to this, and I don't know if it's a COVID thing or just the fact that it was winter, but I've really felt, not social anxiety, but I just have felt that more depleted than normal from social interaction. And that's not to say that I don't want to see people or that I don't like people. It's just that, social interaction, I don't know, I just didn't feel that I was really able to be there. I was really just needed time on my own, time to process, time to think. I had a recurrence of a few PTSD symptoms that came up as well, which was probably part of the reason of not wanting to necessarily connect with people face to face too much. So just really honoured that, really, and it actually means that I've moved through that a lot more quickly. So on reflection, I think that I actually ended up achieving a lot more than I would have had I have planned to do it, by taking the step back and allowing the things, into my field that needed to happen. I was able to achieve those things and actually ultimately ended up probably being a lot more productive, just because I wasn't over scheduling myself to the point where I just felt overwhelmed and just couldn't function and couldn't get things done. So we had a few other things happening in our lives as well. We're about to move office. Some big things have happened in our other business, in our contracting business, which means that we now have to move office, which is a really good push, because we wouldn't have done that without these few little things. So it's a nice investment for our future as well, which is great. And again, having that extra space and time and capacity to be able to manage that process has been really such a wonderful gift. Okay, I've also noticed, what was I going to say there? Our family, I've got a few notes if you're wondering why it sounds like I'm reading. I actually am. For once in my life, I'm actually reading notes rather than just rambling on. I don't often do that. I usually just hop on and start recording a podcast. But this time I've got a few notes, so that's nice. It's a nice change actually, but I can hear the difference in my voice from, I can tell that it sounds like I'm reading, which is also interesting. So anyway, on reflection, our family dynamic has definitely changed a lot, and it's much more peaceful and cooperative. We've had a lot of fun. We've done a lot of cool stuff together, and I've got a big question mark over the future of our school career with the kids and whether that is the right choice for us, or what the next step might potentially be, which is very exciting. It's nice to be able to reassess your life occasionally and figure out what you actually want. One of the things, I guess, is that with traveling, I've always thought that we would be a big traveling family, but I always thought that would just involve a lot of overseas trips. And while we can't do that anymore, that's actually been a really nice time to take real stock of what the purpose of that travel was. And instead of looking at going overseas as a thing to tick off the list, it's like, actually, when we do get to do that, I'm going to enjoy it so much more, and it's going to be so much more of a luxurious privilege to be able to do that. And it's not just going to be something that just happens and sneaks up on me. There'll be a long and beautiful process, and part of the fun of it is actually planning. So instead of rushing through and just getting it done because that's what I said that I wanted, it's actually nice to step back and reflect on, well, okay, what does that actually look like for our family? So that's a good part of hibernating for winter, but also I think a good outcome for us all in all the lockdowns and the COVID stuff. If you can find a silver lining, you better do it. You know what I mean? So again, on the fact that the kids are now no longer babies, I felt that this winter was my winter of sleep recovery. I feel so much less sleep deprived and a lot more mentally clear. We're back to getting up early in the morning. Over the last week or so, the boys have been waking up earlier again, which means that summer settings have arrived, which is actually nice. But it's meant that, through winter, there was a few sleep-ins, there were a few early nights, lots of restfulness. So that feeling in my brain of like just that overwhelming tiredness is finally starting to leave my body. I can see that sleep deprivation is leaving me, which is really good. One of my favorite parts of taking it a little bit slower. Rest is the ultimate self-care in my mind. So, and it can take many forms. Like that's something that I also want to acknowledge, right? That a lot of us think that rest is just sleeping or doing nothing, and it's actually completely not. Rest is a way of life. You can have physical rest, you can have emotional rest, you can have social rest, mental rest, restorative exercise, social media breaks is a kind of rest, sensory rest, meaning like just not having the music or the noise or the radio or talking, the TV background noise, just turning it off. Going for a walk and not having headphones plugged in for a change, just being really quiet or whatever. Giving yourself permission to do nothing and simply taking a moment to like enjoy your food or drink your tea while it's hot. Those are all things that are rest. And I think it's really important for us to not think of rest as something that we do when we've done everything else. Rest is an important part of, it's almost got to be the thing that you put the rest of your life around. So you know that you need to have some time. You know you need to go to bed early enough. You know you need to have, a break in the day. Those are the guideposts of your day so that they become the most important part, not just something that you do when you've, air quotes, earned it. I think that's a really important and easy change that we can all make. So I think another thing that I've discovered with this winter is the saying and the family philosophy of just because we can doesn't mean we should. And that means that it gives us a lot more flexibility to do what we actually want. So I said I read a lot more books. One of them was a book recommended by my brother. He gave his copy to me. It's called Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. You might know it. I just wanted to mention it here because I know he listens to the podcast, and I wanted to say thank you to him officially live online to say thank you for recommending that book. It's a historical fiction and it's based in like the 1100s or something. But I actually read it mainly on Norfolk Island, and there's a really strong convict kind of history on Norfolk Island. And it just sort of tied those two times together, and it felt like I was actually reading the book while in this like historical landmark thing. So that was cool. It was a really nice way to read a book. The Pillars of the Earth is a classic of the genre, so I really recommend if you're into historical fiction about abbots and bishops and kings and queens and things, and that's a really good book to read. Talked about our travel into Norfolk Island just then, but okay, let's move on to, all right, that's my winter reflection. Lots to think about there. And I really encourage you to do your own winter reflection. Like, think back, what did you do in June? What did you do in July? What did you do in August? Not only what did you do, but, who did you see? How did you feel? How was your energy? Thinking back on all of that, like, what would you have done differently had you have thought to maybe do a winter hibernation, and how can you implement, more cyclical living going into the new season? I have actually got a workbook. It's a free workbook. If you go over to my website, there's a matching blog post on my website called Winter Reflections Spring Intentions. And at the very bottom of that, there's a little button that says Winter Workbook. You can click on it and it will automatically download. You don't have to put your email address in or anything. If you download that, you can do your own reflections. It's like 4 or 5 pages of journal prompts. So let's move on to spring. So my intention for spring is to nurture the metaphorical seeds that I've planted during winter. I'll continue to make rest an important part of the process of living. Because I feel that, like I said, when you make rest the guidepost of your day, then life's just better, just flows better. I think it's really underrated. But rest is not just something that you just do in winter. Rest needs to happen every day. It needs to be a way of life so that you can be available when you're needed. Like if you're rushing all the time and always busy and never resting, you're just not really as aware of what's going on, what your kids need. And that's, exacerbates that sleep deprivation and tiredness and forgetfulness and all of the other martyr energy that we talk about. Resentment, frustration, overwhelm, all of those. Rest really is the giver of life, I think. But anyway, so spring is about emerging and beginning a new growth cycle, which is very exciting. So this is my new little plan. So school holidays coming up, if we can, if there's no lockdowns in Queensland, if we remain in that mode, hopefully we do, we have hired a camper van and we're going to go camper vanning for a week and a half, We might go to Longreach to go to the Qantas Founders Museum. We might go to Agnes Waters. I'm not exactly sure, but we've got a beautiful holiday coming up, which I'm so excited about. It feels like an exploration, which is like the spring vibe, like let's go and do some exploring, which is really fun. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got the new office warehouse thing for our contracting business, so we'll be moving into that during spring or at the very end. September, October, November, be like in November. So that is another thing that we'll be processing, which is very exciting. So I'm going to keep the podcast as a fortnightly podcast for now, with possibly bonus episodes as and when, which is exciting. But that is because I have this urge to do more writing. So there'll be more blogs, more written blogs on my website, more stuff on my Facebook page. I'll be here live a lot more, which is very exciting. Here live meaning on my Facebook page. But I'm also going to be doing another exciting project. You may have heard me talk about the Martyr to Matriarch method, which is my matrescent, slow living motherhood kind of, getting us to take more self-responsibility for the way that we show up as mothers. That's my, I don't want to call it signature program, but it's one of my programs. It's a month-long thing. I also have the Slow Life, which is my group coaching program. It's an 8-week thing that you can actually access it. It's on self-paced at the moment, so you can actually sign up and get the content for that. It's all sitting there for you. However, I'm actually going to be putting this together. This is an exciting announcement. I'm going to be putting both of those things together into a book, and it's going to be called the Martyr to Matriarch method or something along those lines. And it's for those mothers who want to do slow living, who want to change, the narrative of the way that they experience motherhood, but who also potentially haven't had the best mothering experience themselves. And I'll talk a lot more about how that applies to me in both the book and in upcoming episodes and on the blog. And, that'll be peppered. My story will be peppered throughout. So if you're interested to follow along on that process, do join me. But the Martyr to Matriarch book is coming, which is very, very exciting. I can't wait to get started writing. I'm hoping to have the first draft finished at the end of September. I want the book to come out officially this year. So that's my big announcement. Very, very exciting. Lots of exciting new things to come. And that's why I said, trust me when I say, if you live cyclically, if you allow yourself to rest and reflect, new things come. And I have books on my shelf about writing books that I've had there for years and years. And I've always said to myself, one day I'll write a book. One day I'll do it. One day I'll be the kind of person who sits down to write. And now I am going to do it. I've created the space. So watch this space. It's very exciting. Yes. And so other spring intentions, one of them will be, which is part of the reason why we've booked the camper van trip, but our new family rituals for spring will be much more outdoor focused. We definitely dove into the hygge, staying in, having hot chocolates, watching movies, that sort of thing, doing Lego. But in spring and obviously summer and autumn as well, we'll be much more outdoor focused, which is which is great. I can't wait for that. So something I won't be doing is allowing myself to get caught back up in the hustle. I've really learnt my lesson that staying in my own lane, working on my own schedule and achieving my own goals is the most fulfilling way to live life. And the path that I've chosen to do that is through slow living. So if that is something that you feel called to, big things are coming. Even though they're my own goals and they're my own schedule and it's my own lane, it's big. I have big intentions for what I want to achieve with this platform and with my life. I really do want to enjoy the process and I want to make it a fun thing to do. I want this to be, the most enjoyable part. It's got to be fun. It's got to be, I'm really focused on becoming more internally motivated, becoming my own boss, literally becoming the matriarch of my life. So if that's something that seems or sounds like you want to do too, because, I'm playing with this idea that, we grow up and we're trained to be good girls, but good girls don't make great mothers. We really need to undo a lot of our good girl training so that we can become the mothers that we envisioned ourselves to be. And the title of mother really needs to be so much more valued and honoured and not respected, I think. It takes a lot to be a good mother. It takes a lot to be a mother and to give. And yeah, I'm here for it all, to be honest. The good, the bad, the hard, and the amazing. So if you're here for that too, then come and join me. If you're listening to the podcast, come and follow me on Facebook. Join my email list so that you can get all of the latest updates on the process of the book and all the other things that are happening. And yeah, otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's something a little bit different than I normally do, but it feels really fun. And I just wanted to share that with you because I think that it's time for me to, open up a little bit more. Instead of just telling you how to live slow, which is what the podcast is called, I really want to show you how I actually do it, how it applies to my life. So I will talk to you again really soon. Take care and have a wonderful week ahead. That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.